Hi, so you want to get rid of your trauma for good. Here's one options, but just know that this is an option and there's many factors that are involved when you are watching this. This video is going to be a little bit longer because I honestly can't make this shorter because I want to disclose the good and the bad, pros and the cons practically, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it and I'm going to be pretty straightforward. Stay tuned. Hi, if you don't know who I am, I'm Sindy V King. I'm a creator of Calling My King. I help transform women to create lasting love through Vedic astrology and neuroscience and transactional analysis. And I want to thank you so much for joining me today. We're going to be talking about trauma and obviously what EMDR represent and what type of healing. I'm obviously going to tell you the pros and cons about it as well, because some people get the healing within one session. And I'm going to be realistic about certain things as well and who's for. And so I'm going to be reading some of my notes and also some of my training manual. So if I'm reading it off, I need to go back and look for it because you know what? When it comes time to editing, I want to make sure everything is in there. I don't want to retake this video again. And just know that this is information. It's not supposed to replace anything that you are currently having a treatment for. You have to consult with your doctor if this is also the right fit based on either medication, diets, or wherever the phase that you're taking for. And I'm going to break it down what EMDR is. So what EMDR represents is called eye movement desensitizations and reprocessing. So what does it mean when you go to sleep? Your eye moves back and forth is when the information is being shredded. So I just want to let you know that it has to do with our eye movement, and I want to talk about even the myth of it as well. So who invented EMDR? Is Frances Shapiro. And it's been over 30 years that she has developed this, and this is working proof. So this is her work, so I got a reference where I got this information from. Who is it for? It's for anyone who has gone either through a breakup or have any sort of disassociation. And what disassociation mean is you feel like either your body is being split, so your head and your body feels not connected, and it's like being on substance or even drugs. You just don't feel like what you normally can do, no longer you can do at the current time being. You're gonna have either some sort of nightmare, flashbacks, looping, even obsessive thoughts, or even has some sort of anxiety or depressions, either from a tragic event or even experience some sort of trauma to the body or to the brain or to the mind. So I want to make that very clear. I gave you some example. It's like, for example, breakup or vicarious trauma. It just means that either you can turn on a TV or your doctor or nurse and have witnessed something that is very traumatic. What you have witnessed creates some sort of sensation in the body that is really uncomfortable. So there is some sort of a discomfort. So what EMDR can do for you, it can shift disturbing memories that it has been fractured. So for example, a lot of people has gone through some sort of quarantine so far in their life. Trauma happens and it kind of pops up when there is silence. So you could be sitting in your home and all of a sudden you have this anxious anxieties just to start to build up, or bubbles, or even a spill out. So that could be a factor. What our brain is supposed to do is take information and store it away. But as we're young kids and we process information very differently. As an adult, we just file it in the cabinet and we don't really deal with it. Either we use substance and alcohol and drugs or whatever to kind of numb that pain and just make it go away over time. Here's the thing, if your brain doesn't remember, your body does. So sensation comes into all the sensory, that could be smell, touch, taste. It could trigger that. I'll give you some example later on to kind of identify that. Again, that's the fracture memory. The minute something just like a ball just hitting through the window, it fragile the rest of it. So it looks like a spider that just spreads over time. So the therapist or the facilitator allow the client to have healing system on a natural unfolding cases. For example, right here, I have my headphone and it's all tangled. So that's like a trauma being stored. What the therapist is supposed to do is untangle one each at a time until we get into the root problem. Does that sort of make sense? Or another analogy is like if you have played video games and you need to get to the next level and there's certain skills that you haven't developed to get you to the next level. That's almost the ego state that I have talked on my channel, and I kind of break that down so you can watch that video over there at the very end. And so that's what it really is. It's all tied up and it's all knotted. And the minute there's silence happens in your life, it starts to bubble out and it's wanting to be taken care of it. Allowing the person to tap in their own healing. We're always going to be working where the level of comfortable, the level of tolerance, emotional tolerance that they can actually develop. Working with conjunction with other therapists is also very effective as well. So if you're seeing a psychiatrist and someone who is a therapist can deal with EMDR, and we can talk about complex trauma maybe in another video, but that will be one association. What EMDR cannot do, it teaches skills. So it wouldn't be able to teach certain skills. So for example, you have to make a speech. It doesn't teach you how to do that. But if you're procrastinating or you have a fear of public speaking, it will help you just get over that, discharging that emotion away. It wouldn't change reality. So if you're going through some sort of grief is another one. It's not going to change that person is going to come back in your life. It's not going to change that circumstances. It can't change the client. It doesn't want to change. For example, making your partner to go to therapy, don't wanting to go to court. Secondary loss. Secondary loss is just simply means like, oh, if I got better, am I still going to get that disability check or not? It doesn't really remove the real emotion. For example, if you're going through some sort of grief or loss, it doesn't take that away from it. All it really does is discharge the emotion and the triggers as well. That's all it really does. Really what EMDR, how I kind of see it, it kind of builds another path of the memory. So that's what I meant by discharge the emotions. So for example, the feeling and the image could be very triggering, or because it creates some sort of sensation. What EMDR therapist would do is discharge that emotion. Either we have methods and ways of actually doing that. What EMDR is meant to do is to get the root problem, so the root cause of this trigger or this sensation or this emotion. So when is the first time you have this first anxiety, and we tackle that? What I mean we tackle that, we go to that scenario and we said, okay, we're going to discharge that with either bilateral stimulation, and there's many ways that we can work with bilateral stimulation. I personally work online, so I deal with clients online. There's some therapists will work with you in person. It depends on which country or state that is being certified. You can also look that up as well on their website. So when I talk about channels and I talk about memories, network, and I talk about those things, they're all very connected to our sensory. So we can look at like sensory input, their thoughts, their emotion, their physical sensation. So that means, you can either go into shock, you can have sweaty hands, palms, and things like that. Even it comes down to a belief system is really key as well. So we want to look at a therapist always going to do some sort of screening if you are the right fit for them, especially if you're on medication. Any sort of medication that start with a PAN is not suitable for EMDR, just because ideally we want you to be present. So if you're on some sort of substance, addiction is because there is some sort of connection, emotional charge, and that's why they're drowning. They need to disassociate that feeling right away because it's too extreme. So I have seen time again. We're always going to review history taking, and in that history taken, You need to be very comfortable about talking, and it's not about talk therapy. So if you really don't like talk therapy, EMDR is most of the time a lot of people go to, just because talk therapy can do so much, but it's just the motion and the triggers and the sensation that happens to the body. It really triggers them. The history taking, we're going to look into like early abandonment, narcissistic parents, violence, abuse. We can look into neglect, even death as well, including suicide. Multiple incidents of abuse is another one. Age of first occurrence, we're going to talk about that. And a degree of interpersonal like violence and threats is another one. Duration of trauma of a situation and closeness of a relationship as well. So, the big red flag, what we call it, we want to look for are disassociation is another one, tension reduction behavior, eating disorder, severe addiction, complex and container, and even resource development installation has difficulties. So we kind of work on that, about a shifting state. That's something that you can work on. And so working on complex and container, having an issue actually managing that exercise, we know there's issue in there. Effects of tolerance and acceptance is another one. Body overwhelm, knowing the window of tolerance. We already talked about that. So I'm going to put a quick image right here so that you can see that. So the window of tolerance, we want to make sure that you're not in hyper or hypo. When you're hyper, that means obviously your heart rate's going to go up, you're going to have more clammy skin, and you're practically going into shock practically. So that's the window of tolerance. It feels too much, it feels too intense, and it feels too real. So if you ever have dreamed at one point and you have fallen, it feels really real to you. So that's the window of tolerance. So we don't want you to make you feel in that way, that you can feel like you're in control. So, and then you're in hypo where you're actually falling asleep. And I have noticed through clients, even case studies as well, about rape victims, about falling asleep because they want things to go away. So they're in the hypo. So you can see people actually yawn, and that's pretty part of normal. I'm not saying all rape cases are always like that, but everybody experiences emotion differently. I have noticed as well, people have easily shift stated. For example, yogas, or if you want to call them yogi, whoever does breath work, has a better state of recovering quicker. So they're able to do the process a lot quicker. So it doesn't mean it's a bad thing or a good thing. It just means that they have a breath control and they know how to let things go and not allow blockage. If there is a blockage, that's the reason why waving your hand like this, it's not going to work, or having any sort of stimulation, it's not going to work. The reason being is because if you're feeling like you're looping like a video game and you're not passing on to the next level, you just feel really stuck. So a therapist will come in and ask you certain things, or ask you to do certain things to prevent you from that blockage so that you can get to the next level. So let's talk about how long does this last once you get the healing of it. It's forever. So if you have gone through some sort of traumatic experience or trauma in your life, and you have gone through EMDR, so that means you get healed forever from the base of the cases. So let's talk about time frames of each session. I know it's a problem when it comes to insurance because they only, I guess, maybe charge for 60 minutes for a session. But honestly, ideally, it's 90 minutes. So you can go from 3 sessions, just working with the intro, seeing if this is actually a right fit. That's how you know if there is some sort of improvement. Clearance-wise, I would say within 24 hours of working with a therapist, I have seen where people get results in one session. When I say it's one session, it's because they have done the history. They know their emotion, they know how to do breath work, and they know how to shift state, and they're able to be in present and they're not in hyper or hypo arousal when it comes to dealing with emotions, and they can control that themselves. Otherwise, we continue on practicing where you can shift states safely so that we can, when it comes to the big, large trauma, we can actually tackle with it without you actually either going into shock or having a disassociation. If money is not a problem or investing into getting yourself healing, honestly, and you're not dealing with insurance, I would say 90 minutes is a reasonable amount of time to get healing. For myself, for my experience, where I have gone back to working with the root cause, so that's more of here's the trauma, we're going all the way back to my childhood and figure out where it starts and how this feel and how is it actually connected. It literally took about maybe 3 hours, and I didn't even know what time or how long I was in that state. People say it's like hypnosis. It's not hypnosis. What you're doing is when you're moving your eye back and forth, there's other options, not only moving your eyes, there's also sound, there's buzzers that you can hold in your hand. There's also tapping as well. Yourself is tapping or the therapist is tapping. There's many ways of doing it. It's not like hypnosis. When you're talking about hypnosis, it's very different technique. You're moving, you're actually conscious, and you can do talk therapy as well. So you can still talk to me. I don't have to snap my finger to make you feel a certain way or believe a certain thing. This is what we're working for. We're working on a target, and we're just clearing that. We're processing the file. We're pulling it out in our brain cabinet and opening it up and reading it out loud. That's what we're doing it. If you are a type of person who is not comfortable having talk therapy or talking about it, okay, so that's something we call it secret therapy. When we're opening the file, we're actually processing the information. We're not even aware of that information, how impactful it was. So we go all the way back from childhood. I say 90 minutes is a good time frame, and you should be working with a therapist 24 hours. And can you get results right away? Yes, there is. And there's a lot of people who is out there who, what I call masculine energy. And when I say masculine energy, they feel like they need to hold that memory or that trigger or that trauma because they feel or have a belief system. Who am I without the story? So, and I want to confront that information by saying you can be that story without that emotional trigger. So you don't have to feel that sensation because you have survived it. So there is a big difference. You have survived the trauma. So that's the reason why you're either sitting across from a therapist. What is the advantage of actually getting all this being cleared out? That you can live the life either without fear, and we can even talk about phobias as well. That if you have some sort of phobia, and phobia doesn't make any sense, and sometimes, you can laugh about it, but phobia is not, it's going back all the way from a childhood. It's a memory captured like a photo. Our brain captures like a picture, and it gets stored in. If you have a phobia of spider, you will not want to, for example, want to go to any hotel without probably checking the hotel with spider, and or it prevents you from traveling outside of your home. So the advantage of that, and once you get it clear, it's good forever. You can work with a therapist. You have to have a good rapport with the therapist, and that's why I was saying that it have worked online. Maybe working somebody within your state. Specifically, always am available to anybody who wants to reach out to me, and I do have a calendar down below, and we can have a chat. You have worked with a therapist within 24 hours, so you have some sort of rapport and history, and they know what you have gone through. I have seen somebody who had some sort of trauma. They probably did go for one session. I probably don't see them again until like the next trauma that they might have gone through in their experience, and they come back for that one session and they get it clear. So I just want to mention that the advantage of it, once it's clear, you have somebody there in place that can work with you. Yeah, so I was trained to be working online, and there's some EMDR doesn't, and there is different type of trauma. So I'm going to be talking about that maybe later on my channel about what's the difference of complex trauma. So I also want to talk about the advantage of also working with clients. So there are some clients that want to move away of complex trauma. And there is ones that are very rewarding. For example, like I have seen maybe someone has a fear of public speaking, but the only thing it's preventing from them is because they had a trip and fall when they were in choir at maybe at 6 years old, and everybody was laughing at them. So they know as an adult, they kind of grew up not being able to go do public speaking because they have a fear of somebody's going to laugh at them. So that could be a very easy, nice session, but it depends. We have to go all the way back to the childhood, something like that, and then we can get to what we call desensitization of a zero, feeling like, you know, it doesn't trigger them anymore. That's what I mean to a zero, and then we can move forward. So I kind of find that really rewarding. Maybe if it's somebody who has maybe been neglected and never had a nurturing figure ever in their lives, that's a little bit more complex. So the session might be a little bit longer as well. The disadvantage, if you have some sort of head injury, it might not work for you. We can try with sounds and things like that. We can also start installing resource development installation, and that might be very helpful so that when you are coming up with anxiety, you have some sort of resource within yourself that builds the ego up, so that you can overcome some sort of barrier. The disadvantage, yes, you need to spend some time doing this. I have seen clients that have traveled across to other therapists and have worked a full 2 days on the specific trauma that they want to overcome. And I've seen that. Like, again, the more that you spend time with your therapist, the better it can be, especially if you're new. The disadvantage, if you've been doing this very a long time and just going through so many trauma, complex trauma, and different doors and different avenues, it could be very tiring, and that's when you need a break in your session as seeing a therapist. So I want to be able to conclude. I probably have missed a few things here and there, but I'm going to be continuing on this session. If you have gone through doing EMDR or have gone through session and you have seen the results, or if you're a client that has probably gone to EMDR, and it could be a belief system. Like I said, it's a process. It's not like a one-stop shop. And it should not feel like hypnosis at all. So we don't put you asleep. We don't even make you close your eyes if you don't want to. So, but I think it's a great beneficial of clearing trauma from the past and creating a new path for it. So if you haven't done it, I would say reach out either to myself, or if it's somebody within your state, country, or even town, that's totally fine as well. But I want to share this information. I think we should heal as a nation as well as the individual, because we're so hurting so badly. So this is the reason why I'm kind of putting this footage out. And I want to thank you for if you made it this far and have learned quite a bit what it can do for you, or you never heard of it. I'm glad that you had an opportunity to learn this.
Look, if you're serious about being fearless in love and ready to be treated like a queen, links is down below to book a time. I got over 100 videos on YouTube and I post new videos every week. So make sure you subscribe. Don't forget to hit the bell button. You get notified when new videos goes live. If your friend is actually stuck in love, share and like my video. I do take requests on topics and answer your burning question about your relationship. So just leave a comment down below. Otherwise, see you in the next video.